My next guest will be traveling to D.C. in just a couple weeks for Hostage Week, and it's precisely what it sounds like. This is a week that is dedicated to shining a spotlight on Americans who are being held hostage overseas. Joseph St. Clair is a decorated U.S. Air Force veteran who has been, unfortunately, held in Venezuela, forcibly abducted by the Maduro regime. And it's a story that not a lot of people know about. But of course, for the family of Joseph, it's painful. Every single day, a reminder that their son is being held hostage. What can the Trump administration do about this? Joining me on the line to discuss is Joseph's father, Scott St. Clair. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I don't think people know about this story. I don't know about this story up until you reached out. So if you could, just take us through what happened.
Yeah, I was traveling in Dallas in early February and had no clue of things that were going on in Venezuela. My phone rang. It's an international number. By all, against all odds, I decided to answer that call. And it was the consulate in Colombia informing me that my son, who had been missing and not in contact with us, we were concerned about him, was actually had been abducted by the Maduro regime. And from that point was just the crazy cycle of figuring things out that have really happened for the last 90 days.
What do you know about what actually happened on that day? How this happened?
From what I understand, first off, it's important to say that Maduro is not communicating with the U.S. and normal communications about people being detained just isn't happening. So without that information, all we know is from Grinnell's being able to bring out those 6 hostages on January 31st. And so through that process, we learned that Joe, who's working in Colombia, decided to take a trip near the border with one of his friends to visit a family member and got too close to the border and got abducted. They saw his military credentials, and all of this really only coming from the captives that were brought back. That's how we know any of this.
Now, when you mentioned Grinnell, you're talking about Rick Grinnell. He was part of the
Correct.
envoy to Venezuela, leaving with 6 Americans who were kidnapped under the Trump administration. Grinnell has been working to address not this case in particular, but all cases of
right.
Hostage situations around the globe. When you learn the new information, what went through your head? Because I imagine for a while there, and to an extent, you're still sort of living in a vacuum of information.
True. Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I was kind of aware that stuff was going on in Venezuela, but certainly hadn't even seen that particular broadcast about those 6. And if from that point forward, it was a quick study on what's going on down there. And the consulate told me check out that news article, and I saw it immediately. And again, like I said, it's from that point forward, just being first off shocked, blown away, emotional, freaking out, just trying to figure out what to do. From that point with, kind of blinders on, just started reaching out to anybody and everybody I could to find out, number one, research on Venezuela. Number 2, what the heck does this even mean? How dangerous is it? What do I do to help my son? And it's been, like I said, 90 days of just really constant immersion and reaching out to, sometimes it seems desperately reaching out to people. I'd tell you, the positive side of this is obviously Trump administration has been pretty successful in their first 100 days with hostages, so it's encouraging. Special Envoy for Presidential Hostage Affairs, Adam Baylor, even early on reached out to me personally and kind of walked me through some things, and I thought that was amazing. And I'm thankful. Joe got quickly designated as wrongfully detained by the Secretary of State. So these are things that now I'm learning don't happen that quickly. And so I'm very thankful that stuff's happening, but there's still that question, what's the plan? Our son has PTSD. he's already suffers from that. And then our fears are, we've got no eyes on him. Is he okay? And all those things. So it's just really a battle of how to get people's attention. And certainly this trip we're taking to Washington, D.C. is going to be part of that effort.
We're talking with Scott St. Clair. He's the father of Joseph, who is being held hostage right now in Venezuela, has been since about November 2024. You're local from Hansville, Washington, so
That's right.
You've been reaching out to our senators and presumably members of Congress as you can. I know you reached out to Patty Murray's office and Maria Cantwell's office. What has their response been?
Really nothing from Patty Murray at all. Just not even a form letter response. Maria Cantwell's office finally did get back with me and had a nice conversation with their director of constituent affairs and at least got directed how what kind of letter I could send to the senator for request for help. So I've done that. I've invited the senator to come, Cantwell, to come to the event. The event in Georgetown on the 30th, where the big mural is going to be unveiled. I haven't gotten an answer back yet. So at least there's some communication, but I haven't gotten any kind of indication that they'll support. I hope they will.
I mean, this whole process is obviously new to you. It's new to anyone in a situation like this. And, even you reaching out to me, I didn't see many of your emails or your messages until I checked my spam folder, for example, and then I got more information. And I imagine, you're talking with these senators who have thousands of emails coming in a day. It feels like you shouldn't have to be doing this work. The work should be done on your behalf.
Yeah, it does feel that way sometimes. And then, obviously the administrative process rolls in. So everybody I talk to, I have to retell the story, and that's okay. But they've got to get, they've got to vet it and then, ultimately decide, does it fit into their policy structure and so on. So it just seems to me that this issue is a nonpartisan issue. We're talking about Americans here. Seems like it's something everybody can get behind. And like you said at the beginning, people don't know about it. In fact, it kind of blew me away how little I knew about the space of number of Americans held hostage. And then when I started talking to people about the Grinnell thing, almost nobody knew about it. And so it just really shocks a lot of people that that's the case. And I bet you, if you ask your neighbor which country holds the most hostages, American hostages today, they'd say something else. They'd say Russia or Afghanistan or in Gaza or something like that. And the truth is it's Venezuela, and there's a pattern of this. And it's, and again, most people just don't even know that Maduro does this regular. And then the other reaction is like, what the heck were they doing down there? But I understand that reaction. But it's just an unacceptable tactic, I think, by a tyrant.
So, obviously, as you're going through this process, you learned some information based on Rick Grinnell's trip on January 31st. Do you know anything about Joseph's condition?
Yeah, it was very helpful to get to speak with actually one of his cellmates. And, so at least we got, that was a shard of light and darkness that just was said he's alive. And because of his military training, they said that he was stepping up and kind of leading some of those folks. He's been, trained in SEER and things like that. But yeah, so at least we know he's alive, seemingly healthy. It sounds like they try to keep them healthy for use as pawns. But then again, doing the research, you go back, and I don't want to do too much history here, but there was a group called the Citgo Six that were held for 2+ years. And when you read about those accounts, there's times when they're being treated kind of like the fatted lamb and, or the golden goose. And then there's times where they're getting tortured and, and beaten and things like that. So, the good news is that as of January 31st, healthy, alive, doing okay, seemingly a good attitude, but it's been a long time since then and zero contact. So every day that goes by, we're concerned day after day.
Yeah. I mean, how are you and your family coping with this? Again, no one's trained to go through something like this.
We have a really great faith family around here, so that's been helpful. The extended family across the country has rallied. His siblings have stepped up and done what they can, social media, et cetera. So we're talking a lot. It seems overwhelming a lot. I mean, but we're coping that way. And resources have popped out that there's an organization called Hostage US that has been helpful coaching us. I've had to enlist a hostage expert who even knew there were people that did that for a living, but I've had some people step up and give really good advice about how to navigate the space. And so just, it seems weird to be almost working at this daily. It seems like it would be hurtful or emotional to have to do that. But every person that reaches out that gives some more insight, it seems helpful. And then we just do our best to go on with life and support, my wife and I and Joe's mom to, stay busy and pray and advocate. That's the best we can do right now.
Yeah. What are the next steps between now and Hostage Week when, unfortunately, you'll be competing for attention with so many other families who are going through exactly what it is you're going through?
Well, there's a community that's arisen in this too. So other hostage families that have people in Venezuela, we've connected. In fact, just got off a group call with them, and we're pooling our resources to try to help one another and meet one another in Washington and mention those loved ones' names. There's Wilbert Joseph Castaneda, who's a Navy SEAL who's with Joe. He's one of the leaders there. There's Lucas Hunter, who was basically parasailing in Colombia, got grabbed off a motorcycle, among others. There's Jose Vargas, who was running a restaurant down there and got grabbed. So we're, I'm working with them to just hit every senator, every congressperson, every news outlet possible to say, hey, this event's going on Wednesday, April 30th at 10 a.m. in Georgetown. There's a huge mural. There's going to be a press conference. And so right now that seems like the most tangible thing we can do is say, hey, people, this is happening. If we can get, eyes on this, get more senators and Congress people to pay attention and then begin to push the administration, that's going to be a good thing. And so again, special presidential for hostage affairs has been great, but the truth is, in a political world, they need congressional pressure and public pressure to prioritize this issue. And all you hear about right now is oil leases and deportees and things like that are happening with El Salvador, and all those things are important. But it seems like every time something comes on, that's all that's talked about. They fail to mention American hostages languishing in prison.
Yeah, so it's just, unfortunately, it's not something that's top of mind for the American people, and it should be. And, I imagine it's difficult for you to have to retell this story as many times as you've had to. All you want is your son home. And so I certainly appreciate what it is you're willing to share. And obviously your son will appreciate all the work that you and your wife and so many others are doing on his behalf. And, if there was ever a presidential administration that I do have a lot of confidence in caring about this issue, it's this current one. And so I hope that we'll be able to put some pressure on this administration and really Congress to get moving on this. He will be in our prayers. Your family will be in our prayers, Scott, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. Good talking to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're listening to The Jason Rantz Show.